Okay, welcome back to this episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about deploying and monitoring your anchor. So we're going to be covering how to deploy the anchor, set it securely, and ensure that you have a safe stay. This is where I'll mention that if you're looking for any up on your skills game, check out the Nautic Ed anchoring course, which will be linked into the notes. Okay, deploying the anchor. You got to plan first, right? So the helm person and the bow person must agree on the plan, including placement, depth, scope, and how to set the anchor. So clear communication is key. You can do that with hand signals or verbal cues in order to communicate more effectively. After that, you want to position the boat. So you want to face the boat into the wind or upstream, depending on where the current or what has the strongest forces on that. You want to stop all forward momentum before you start deploying the anchor. So now let's talk about dropping the anchor. So you carefully want to lower the anchor to avoid damaging the boat's gel coat. You know, some people will just like hold down the windlass button and the anchor will just like swing out and it'll just scrape up the gel coat of the boat. So avoid that. Take your time as you're dropping it to avoid that type of damage. Once the anchor goes down, allow the boat to drift back naturally, or you could motor. You want to make sure that the anchor doesn't stack on itself, all the chain. So as you're moving back, keep deploying more chain. The bow person should signal when the anchor hits the bottom. So you want to know how much anchor you're going to be letting out and be able to communicate that. So setting the anchor. So you can naturally have the boat kind of drift you back and eventually it'll like lock in, or you could put in reverse power and just reverse on to the anchor, right? So you just want to put the engine into reverse, put it around 1500 RPMs. You can have it sit there for a few minutes and really dig the anchor into the seabed. That's one way of doing it. A pro tip is that the bow person can test if the anchor is dragging by feeling vibrations through the chain or rope, right? So if you put your hand on it, if the anchor is dragging across the bottom, that vibration will translate to the chain. So you'll be able to feel it. Now, if you're like me and you have an all chain setup, you're going to need a snubber. So a snubber is a stretchy piece of nylon that basically reduces the shock loads that the anchor has on the windlass. So basically, you deploy the anchor, the chain is tight, you take the snubber, you tie it to a lock point on the boat and you tie it to somewhere on the chain, and then you let out more chain and eventually that chain will bag and all of the pressure from the anchor will be on this snubber. So it basically reduces all the shock loads that your boat could have. So after you've set the anchor, you've reversed on it, the anchor is in the mud or dirt, sand, clay, you want to have a check and make sure that you're not dragging over time, right? Because the boat can shift and move. And so even though it might be stuck at the time being, it could change over time. So you want to do a visual bearing, right? So you find two fixed points on the shore and monitor them over time to make sure that the boat isn't moving anywhere, right? You just do some bearing precision right there. When night falls, right, you can pretty much do the same thing with lights on shore. Also at night, you can set anchor alarms, and the anchor alarms can be in really two different ways. One can be kind of a GPS location. So if you drift outside of this preordained GPS area, an alarm will sound. And then there's also the depth meter. So basically, if the boat starts dragging and it gets into an area of lower depth, an anchor alarm can go off. But yeah, that was some insights on anchoring. And again, check out Nautic Ed's anchoring course that's in the show notes below.